Hi everyone and welcome to another crafty tutorial. This one is part of the Altenew March release hop, so please feel free to check out the videos from the other designers as well. For my card today I'm using the Altenew parchment scrolls. It's a beautiful die set from the March release that creates these really realistic looking parchment scrolls. It's also super easy to assemble as it follows the keyhole mechanism again. You could cut all of these pieces from white cardstock and then add some color with ink later, but I only have a single brown ink pad, so I decided to cut all of these pieces from different colored cardstock. And surprisingly, I had enough cardstock shapes of brown. But cutting the pieces from pre-colored cardstock also means that you have to put a lot of thought into which piece needs to be which colors beforehand. So I like to distribute all the dies onto the right piece of cardstock before cutting them. So once that's done and I'm sure of their positions, I go and cut them out. When you have all your die cuts ready, you'll notice that each piece has a tiny little keyhole as well as a tiny embossed number on it, both of which are guides to help you stack your die cuts. So you start with the piece with the number 1 on it, then look for the piece with the number 2 and the same shaped keyhole. Now you just glue piece number 2 onto piece number 1, and you know it's in the right position when both keyholes align perfectly. And then you just continue doing that with the other pieces in the right order. There's one special feature with these scroll dies, as the first piece has 2 different shaped keyholes, one at the top and one at the bottom. These basically mark different turns of the scroll. And at a certain point, at piece number 4 to be precise, you just continue using the second keyhole as your guide. But from there on, it's just the same as before. You just look for piece number 5, add some glue to the back and align both keyholes again. And the last piece is meant to cover up all the keyholes. I think even without ink, these scrolls look great. But if you prefer the ink version, you have a full guide of inks on the back side of the packaging that recommends an ink color for each of your die cuts, so you don't have to worry about which ink to use. But of course you can also get creative and use completely different colors. I also want to use a new Quill and inkwell set for my card, which just goes perfectly together with the scroll die set. This set also has an ink guide on the back, but again I don't have too many ink pads, so I'm going for a hybrid version for this one, where I use different colored cardstock for most of the parts and just ink up the feather. But first I put my inkwell together and then chose a purple set of inks for my feather. I want the feather to have kind of a color gradient, where the center part around the shaft is rather dark and then it gets lighter towards the edges. Originally I chose 2 different shades of purple, but I just ended up using one. And I mean, it didn't turn out quite perfect, but I think it's good enough. So I'm just putting the quill together now. And here's a close-up of all 3 final pieces: the scroll, the inkwell and the quill. And now let's move on to the card base. This piece is 10.5 centimeters wide and 23.85 centimeters long. But don't worry, I'll put all the measurements in centimeters as well as in inches, and of course all the score lines in the description. Now I'm just folding and burnishing all the scores, and I'm using my bone fold for this, but if you don't have one, you can just as easily use your fingernail. And while I'm doing that, just a quick reminder that you can partake in the Altenew March release giveaway by commenting on this or all the other hop videos. Okay, all scores have been burnished, and now I'm just folding it up to see if it looks like I intended it, like a normal card base with kind of a box in the front. And since it looks good, I'm now adding a little bit of glue to the last little segment. And then I just adhere it to the card front. For that, I'm folding it along the second score line from the top, fold the whole card flat and press it down firmly. And once the glue has dried, you should be able to fold it up and down like this. To give my card base a more rustic look that I think fits the scroll and the inkwell theme perfectly, I decided to give it a inked up brown border. So I'm using the only shade of brown ink that I own and ink up all the edges of my card. This brown ink actually belongs to a set of yellow inks, but I think it can pass off as brown easily. And I mean, we speak of yellowed pages anyway, right? Not of browned ones. Okay, I think that looks nice and old. So the base is ready to be decorated. And for that, I'm gluing down the scroll, the inkwell and the quill, but only to the bottom part of the card, so basically just to that part that moves up and down. And since I'm going for an ancient look of my card, I'm also going for an ancient sounding sentiment. I toast thee on the triumphant anniversary of thy birth. Just like Shakespeare would have said it, don't you think? And to finish it all up, I'm also adding a cheers to the bottom right corner. And I really gave my best to recreate these old calligraphy letters. Then I just cut off the end that was hanging over the edges of my card, and still wasn't quite satisfied with the looks of my card. The edges kind of seemed too straight for me, so I decided on the spot to change that. So I used my scissors to give the edges some cuts and wiggles that kind of matched the ones of the scroll. It's just a tiny little detail, but I think it makes all the difference. And that's my final card. It folds flat in the mail and the recipient can easily fold it up to make the scroll and the inkwell stand out. And you have enough of space to write your personal message on the back side of the card. I hope you like it, and don't forget to check out the other videos in the hub.